The hospital hallway smelled of disinfectant and stale coffee, the kind of place where time slowed down and every sound echoed louder than it should. Monitors beeped behind closed doors, nurses hurried past without making eye contact, and somewhere a baby cried, sharp and brief, like a reminder of what this building was supposed to protect. Aaliyah Johnson sat on the edge of a hospital bed, one hand pressed to her swollen belly, the other gripping the thin blanket they had given her. She was 7 months pregnant. Her breathing was shallow, uneven, and fear sat heavy in her chest. Not just fear for herself, but for the life growing inside her. She had told the nurse 3 times that something felt wrong. She had said the pain wasn't normal. She had said the baby hadn't moved like this before. She had said she felt dizzy, weak, like her body was slipping out of her control. The nurse nodded politely, typed something into a tablet, and said, "The doctor will be with you shortly." Shortly turned into nearly an hour. When Dr. William Harlan finally entered the room, he didn't look at Aaliyah right away. He flipped through her chart, sighed softly, and adjusted his glasses like someone already irritated. "What seems to be the problem?" he asked, his voice flat. Aaliyah swallowed. "I'm in a lot of pain. Something feels wrong. I've been bleeding a little, and I feel lightheaded." Dr. Harlan glanced at her belly, then back at the chart. "First pregnancy." "Yes." He nodded once, unimpressed. "That's common. Anxiety can make things feel worse than they are." "It doesn't feel like anxiety," Aaliyah said quietly. "Please. I know my body." He finally looked at her then. His eyes lingered just a second too long, cold and dismissive. "You people always think something is wrong," he said casually, as if commenting on the weather. "Pregnancy is uncomfortable. That doesn't mean it's an emergency." Aaliyah froze. "You people," she repeated, barely above a whisper. Dr. Harlan didn't respond. He tapped the chart again. "Your vitals are within range. I don't see any reason to panic. We'll monitor you and see if it passes." "Can you do an ultrasound?" she asked. "Just to be sure." He shook his head. "Not necessary right now. We have patients with real emergencies." Then he turned and walked out. Hours passed. The pain grew worse. Aaliyah's breathing became labored, her hands trembling as she pressed the call button again and again. Sometimes a nurse came. Sometimes no one did. Each time she tried to explain, she was told the same thing. The doctor wasn't concerned, she just needed to rest. She thought about her husband, Marcus. Marcus Johnson was meticulous, calm, always prepared. He worked long hours, traveled often, and carried the weight of responsibility quietly, without drama. She knew he would be furious if he knew how she was being treated, but she didn't want to worry him over something that might pass. She texted him anyway. "Something's wrong. They're not listening." His reply came almost instantly. "I'm on my way." Marcus arrived at the hospital less than 30 minutes later. He moved with purpose, scanning faces, reading the room the way he had been trained to do. When he reached Aaliyah's room and saw her pale face, the sweat on her forehead, the fear in her eyes, something dark flickered behind his calm expression. "What happened?" he asked softly, taking her hand. "They won't help," she whispered. "The doctor said I'm overreacting." Marcus pressed the call button himself. When Dr. Harlan returned, his irritation was obvious. "Sir, visiting hours. I'm her husband," Marcus said evenly. "And I want to know why my pregnant wife has been in pain for hours without proper evaluation." Dr. Harlan looked Marcus up and down. His tone shifted, just slightly, but not enough. "We're handling it. These cases are often exaggerated." Marcus's jaw tightened. "I want a full examination. Now." Dr. Harlan scoffed. "You don't get to make medical decisions." "I do." The room felt smaller. He turned to leave again. Marcus watched him go, his expression unreadable. "Stay with me," Aaliyah whispered, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I'm not going anywhere," Marcus said. "I promise." But promises don't always stop damage already in motion. By the time another doctor was called hours later, after a shift change, after Aaliyah's condition visibly worsened, it was too late to undo everything that had been ignored. The room filled with urgency that should have been there from the beginning. Machines were brought in, voices overlapped, orders were shouted. Marcus stood against the wall, holding Aaliyah's hand as tightly as he could, whispering to her, telling her he loved her, telling her to stay. She looked at him one last time, her eyes full of apology, like she thought she was the one failing. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "You don't apologize," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "You rest." Aaliyah passed away quietly that night. The hospital called it a complication. Marcus called it what it was: neglect. The days after blurred together: funeral arrangements, unanswered questions, official condolences that sounded rehearsed and hollow. The hospital released a brief statement expressing sympathy and denying wrongdoing. Dr. Harlan returned to work the following week. What the hospital didn't know was who Marcus Johnson really was. Marcus didn't announce his job. He never had. He didn't wear it like a badge or use it to intimidate. But he was a senior special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, specializing in internal corruption, civil rights violations, and institutional misconduct. And he knew exactly how to build a case. He requested Aaliyah's full medical records. Every note, every timestamp, every ignored call. He spoke to nurses quietly, respectfully, letting them talk. Some were nervous, some were angry, a few cried. Patterns emerged. Aaliyah was not the first. There were other names, other charts, other black patients whose symptoms had been minimized, delayed, dismissed. Pregnant women, elderly men, teenagers. Marcus brought the evidence to the right people. Not loudly, not emotionally, methodically. An investigation was opened. Dr. Harlan was questioned. He denied everything. Said his decisions were based on medical judgment, not bias. Said accusations of racism were overblown. Then the internal emails surfaced. Then the recorded comments. Then the statistical data showing disparities in care under his supervision. The hospital tried to settle quietly. The FBI didn't let them. News broke weeks later. Federal investigation uncovers pattern of racial neglect at City Hospital. Dr. Harlan was suspended, then terminated. His medical license was reviewed. Lawsuits followed. The hospital administration was forced to publicly acknowledge systemic failures. Marcus stood at a podium once, just once, when reporters asked why he pursued the case so relentlessly. "My wife trusted this system," he said calmly. "She trusted a doctor to see her as human. This wasn't about revenge. It was about making sure no one else is ignored because of the color of their skin." He didn't mention his badge. He didn't need to. A scholarship was later established in Aaliyah's name for black women pursuing careers in maternal health care. New training protocols were mandated. Oversight increased. None of it brought her back. But her name didn't disappear into silence. Marcus visits her grave every Sunday. He tells her about the changes. About the lives that might be different because someone finally listened. He places his hand on the cool stone and whispers the same promise every time.